Hello and welcome to yet another edition of Forbes Live. And this time we have a little bit of a novum because this is going to be the first of our editions broadcasted, streamed in English, which is, of course, a wonderful opportunity for us at Forbes Bulgaria to give the floor to people which are not very common guests at events because of the language barrier, obviously. So today we will be talking about COVID-19, yet again, and how it actually changed industries, how it changed business. And it's a huge pleasure for me to introduce to you our guests joining us from different points of Bulgaria. We have George Margoni's, who is the general manager of Filip Morris International. We have Kристиан Руге, who is the general manager of Kempinski Hotel, Grand Arena Bанско. And we have Dr. Дейвид Евънс, who is the newly appointed interim president of AUBG, the American University of Bulgaria in Blagoevgrad. And I think I find you, David, in there at the campus, right?
Yes, I'm in my office.
George, you are in Sofia, I suppose?
I'm in Sofia, yeah.
And Kристиан, you have to be in Bанско, right?
Yes, we have a high season now, and I'm enjoying the beautiful sunshine, blue sky, and lots of snow in Bанско.
Oh, how we envy you, trust us. Well, probably you could tell us a little bit how the season in Bанско looks like at the moment, because a lot of people are thinking of going to Bанско, maybe are a little afraid. I've heard that a lot of Romanians suddenly streamed into Bанско. So tell us, how is the season going on? You're in the middle of it, right?
Yeah, we are in the middle of the high season. First of all, thanks for having me today, Veselin. Now February is really busy. January was still a little bit slow in terms of hotel occupancy, but February is very busy because we have vacation in some of the surrounding countries, and that has actually changed a little bit. The feeder markets, usually we have a lot of British guests here and Russian guests, and now we see more the surrounding countries. As you mentioned, Romania had school holidays, but we also saw a lot of customers from the Ukraine in January especially, and of course much more Bulgarian guests, also luckily with a lot of families.
And how was the summer actually? How did you, I would call it, survive the summer?
Yeah, actually the summer was not that bad. We reopened the hotel after the seasonal closure on the 22nd of May, so first week of May and June was kind of slow because the weather was also not that stable. And then as of July, we saw a good pickup. And August, we had about, let's say, 27% less business than last year, but that is in face of the current situation already very good. So, I mean, a lot of other hotels were closed. The Greek borders were not open. So we had quite a lot of guests, especially from Bulgaria, that said we go to the mountains, we are hiking, we spend our time in the nature with the kids, and they stayed with us. So July, August, September was quite okay.
Yeah, because obviously the tourism industry was one of the hardly hit from the crisis. But let's go to a few kilometers up north to Blagoevgrad and go to another industry which wasn't directly affected, but I think the long-term effect of COVID will have a very very high impact on the way education is happening. And David, share a little bit about your experience at AUBG. What has been happening down there in Blagoevgrad in the past year or so?
Well, last spring was, of course, a major crisis that came up quite suddenly, and we had to accommodate the order from the government to go online. Actually, we decided to do it before the government ordered it, but we were in the middle of spring break and had to send students home or keep them from coming back, and the rest of the semester was more or less of a scramble. We had not really ever done a lot of virtual education before, and fortunately we have some faculty who have experience at other institutions having done so. So that was really good. But really, honestly, last spring was just trying to keep up and get to the end of the semester effectively and safely, which we ended up doing. Then in the summer we spent all summer, really, under the leadership of our academic leaders, the department chairs and the provost, Dr. Robert White, setting up plans to do various versions of online and on-campus instruction this fall. And we started the semester in a hybrid mode. We allowed students the choice of whether they wanted to come back and study in a hybrid mode or whether they wanted to stay online. About 2/3 of our students came back to campus and the third stayed online. And we were going along fine. We've been very fortunate, very few infections on campus. It's been really good in that respect. But then in early November, the government again ordered us to go online. And we were fortunately this time completely ready to do it because we'd set the whole thing up during the summer. And we are still that way. The current order continues through April 30th. It's not exactly clear what the government is going to do or wants us to do for the rest of the semester, but we've extended the online for now. Right now it says till February 22nd, and if we need to go to the end of the semester, we will. Again, we've been very fortunate not to have a lot of illness, but of course there's been a lot of disruption because what our students love is being on campus and participating in all the activities and being with their friends, and that's a big part of the experience at AUBG, and it's been really sad and difficult not to have that for the last year, pretty much.
We will come to the long-term effects of COVID-19 on education, because this will remain a topic, I think, in the upcoming years. But George, let me ask you something which is more of a pragmatical, administrative thing. But I'm really curious about planning, because you're in a business where a lot of planning is involved, and you obviously plan a year at least ahead, budget-wise, but also in terms of income, sales, etc., etc. So how did the planning process actually happen for 2021, and how was it different from these before, in your experience?
First of all, from my side, to thank you as well for the invitation. It's a great pleasure to be among distinguished colleagues from business and education. Look, in 2021, nothing really changed for us in terms of planning, because we continue to stay committed to our vision and continue to invest in scientific research, development, and improvement of our smoke-free platforms, which actually reduce harm from smoking. And we continue having this vision and this objective looking forward. So COVID definitely changed our perspective, but didn't change our mission and plans. Beyond the core vision, our focus in the upcoming period in terms of COVID will be to continue doing what we did in 2020, meaning provide excellent customer care in the various, remote and digital channels that we developed in order to operate. And at the same time, which is the top priority, ensuring the safety and security for our customers, employees, and overall society. I mean, since COVID is undoubtedly a global event, disrupted entirely the business environment and obviously economies around the world. So this kind of phenomena with such magnitude changes all of us and becomes, a test for strength, for governments, for businesses, for societies, for everybody. So, I mean, no much changes in terms of planning. We continue with our vision since we are in transformation mode the last years. But at the same time, we need to cater business and people during this crucial period for COVID.
Thank you, George. Being the general manager for Filip Morris Bulgaria, you also work with a lot of vendors, a lot of companies that surround you and support you of doing business. What in your opinion, or what have you heard from them as feedback on how this whole partnership thing is going in the process now, where it's a little bit more hard to really predict what's going to happen in the future? So how are you working with your partners now, and what's their feedback on the general situation in Bulgarian business?
It's true, Veselin, there are different challenges in different industries. For us, being in the fast-moving consumer goods sector, we have hundreds of thousands of consumers that need to buy daily our products. At the same time, we have vendors that need to distribute product all over Bulgaria. And also we have employees, which actually is another core audience to be there and support them during this period. I would like, before I go to vendors and the rest of audiences, I would like to say that here business has one more responsibility. It should be very close to society overall, because in this kind of crisis, the sustainability part of the society is under pressure. So this is another stakeholder, important stakeholder that all businesses should be very close to support during this period. Now, from our side, starting from the very beginning of this adventure with COVID, actually we had very clear directions from the mother company. So even before the first lockdown in Bulgaria, we provided with travel restrictions to our employees, making sure that they are safe. Since we didn't, if you remember at that time, we didn't have much data how to cope with this situation. At the same time, we provided instructions to our partners, having the know-how, from the global institutes. And just after that, when the first lockdown took place back in March, we were ready to operate, remotely. First of all, so all people, we follow the direction from the government, so all people work from home. At the same time, partners was working under difficult circumstances, but under clear safety measures. And in terms of consumers, we tried, especially there that our partners are operating through the stores. We try to follow strictly the government and the global institutes restrictions, safety measures in order to provide safety and comfort for everybody. So I would say that it was the first lockdown. It was a bit more difficult because we were facing the unknown. I tend to say that COVID is a kind of black swan, which is not a clear black swan, because everybody knows pandemics. In history, we have a long heritage with pandemics, but it's a black swan because nobody was expecting it to happen now. So I would say the first period, the first lockdown was much harder than the second one. Now we were better, more prepared to support the business.
Absolutely, yeah, I fully agree with you. And but you've mentioned the topic of safety of people, customers, of course, your own teams, and I think this is something that both Christian and David could also share their opinions on. And of course, Christian, with you are facing people and you're facing customers all the time. So how are you dealing with the situation of keeping them safe, keeping your staff safe, and at the same time providing the experience that one would expect when going to one of the best hotels in Bulgaria?
Yeah, yes, indeed, that is a huge challenge, and that is also our number one priority, to keep guests safe. Doesn't matter if it's a current situation or in any other case, the safety of our guests is most important. We have nearly 160 rooms, so if the hotel is full, like now these days, we have 350 guests if there are a lot of kids in the hotel. So this is quite a huge number. And these guests are not sitting in their room, but they are walking around, they go to the spa, they go to the restaurants. So we have implemented a very strict hygiene protocol, Kempinski wide for all hotels, which is called Kempinski White Glove Service, that was rolled out in May. And so we were ready for the reopening. We placed plexiglass coverage at the reception, at the breakfast buffet. We bought all kinds of disinfection tools, UVC light, air filters. I think we have 22 all over the hotel. We disinfect, there are a lot of things all employees have to wear masks and gloves, which is also really quite challenging. If you clean up rooms 8 hours a day and you have to wear a protective mask, this is quite a challenge. And I'm really proud of the team that they manage so well to be disciplined. Even in the staff restaurant, we have to sit on separate tables 2 meters away from each other, also with this UVC light air purifiers to ensure that nobody can spread anything. The guests, I have to say, are quite cooperative. I don't have any, since we reopened, don't have any comments that why should I wear the mask, or when they help themselves at the buffet, why should I wear this plastic gloves? They are all happy that the hotel is open, that they can enjoy their time with the family here in the nature, in the summer for hiking or now for skiing. So that works quite well. And yeah, I mean, that is our main priority, to keep everyone safe. But it's a lot of extra work, I have to say. And we have to adapt every week to a new situation. Restaurants are closed for some time. The restaurants are allowed to reopen. They are only open until 10 o'clock and only at 50% capacity. So there are a lot of things that we have to reinvent all the time. But yeah, on the other hand, it keeps us fit, and probably it was forcing us to reinvent some parts of our business that will help us also for the future. So we try to learn from that situation and to make the best out of it.
And David, I think you are facing a similar challenge in terms of protection of your customers, being the students, of course. But you're dealing with young people, and
yes.
How are they coping with the situation?
Well, we
in general tends to be, what's the word? A little bit rebellion.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, in terms of the physical spaces and the cleaning protocols, actually, we've done very similar things to what Kристиан just described at the hotel. Obviously, though, our big concern is a very densely packed group of young people who we have housing and who are gathering together for meetings and clubs and those sorts of things, as well as doing other kinds of activities. Our students were actually really quite good about it. They, I think, took seriously the risk for the most part, and have been quite cooperative. We implemented some protocols for getting events approved ahead of time, meetings and those sorts of things that incorporated social distancing and sanitization and all that sort of thing. And so the students were really, I was honestly surprised for exactly the reason that you suggest, that, you know, young people are sometimes not so careful, and certainly the stories coming from the United States were very, very bad. But our students really stepped up and have been great. And again, one of the ways that we were able to get them to be cooperative, honestly, was to say, we can have you together and we can have some kind of life on campus as long as you are cooperative with the safety measures and the health measures that we've taken. So it was offering them a kind of a responsibility for their own social life and the continuation of life on campus. And really, truly, until the government order in November, we were fine. We had not a single instance of classroom transmission, and really only one piece of community transmission on campus at all, which was between 2 staff members. So I think we did a very nice job. And again, just are, of course, very careful to be compliant with the government orders. And so everybody dispersed, or a lot of people dispersed back in November. We did let students stay because they had access to all our campus resources. So again, we've been fortunate. I think our students are marvelous, and they really did step up for the most part on this. There were a few, but we did have some fairly strict penalties for them, and once the students saw we were serious about it, they really got into line and were just excellent.
Yeah. So okay, the carrot works, but also the stick works.
Absolutely, absolutely. Both ends on that one.
George, I had a pleasure to interview your global communications head, Marian Zautzman, just before Christmas, and I'm going to explain why I'm bragging on that. First of all, I'm bragging because it was an amazing experience to talk to someone who is a leading trend spotter worldwide, and our readers at Forbes, both the magazine and online, had the pleasure of reading what she had to say about the future of this world and how the pandemic will affect it. But she was actually saying that at the Philip Morris International, you were able to see where things are going at the very beginning of the pandemic because of your involvement in different continents and in different countries. So I would like to ask you, because Christian mentioned that at Kempinski they have global protocol, what is to be followed. So you also are part of a global organization. And I'd like to ask you about a little bit the bigger picture. What were the learnings for Philip Morris International from this pandemic? And how do you think these learnings will be implemented? Midterm, long term, will they be forgotten at one point? Or do you think they're here to stay?
Yeah, first of all, it's always interesting and fascinating to listen to Marian because she has a long experience on, as you said, to spot the trends globally. So, yeah, going back to your question, I would like to say that how myself or Philip Morris Bulgaria or Philip Morris International overall experience this crisis. I would say that COVID is just one more part of a big revolution that is taking place the last years. So I would say that, you know, first of all, Philip Morris is passing, as you know, basically from other touch bases, is passing through a huge transformation of the business, since we are changing everything in terms of products, moving to safer alternatives, but at the same time, you know, transforming the business, being more digital, being more modern, let's say, in order to facilitate the changes in our business. But it's not only that, you know, the last years, the whole globe is facing, you know, big changes with revolutions in biotechnology and the digitization of information. So I would say this is another challenge that is taking place, and challenges businesses, governments, people, everything. So now we had a third thing, which it was for us a health crisis, and this is something that, you know, it's clearly a challenge. I mean, how to deal with all these things. So it's very important to understand that it's not only one crisis. It's a continuous, uncertain situation that is taking place with high complexity in all aspects. So for us, it's the first thing that we are focusing on based on these transformations and especially challenges is mainly the focus to the consumer. So I think it's not only for Philip Morris, but it's for every business. This crisis is putting even more consumer on the focus, and all businesses will go being closer to the consumer, take advantage of the technology, and follow and adjust based on what consumer behavior is going to change. And there is huge challenge the last 10 years about the changes of the consumer behaviors that COVID is speeding up. So there will be no respectable business in the future without, you know, having digital means. For example, e-commerces, remote operations, fast customer service without physical contact. The second thing is that you need to use data in order to predict the consumer, how the consumer behavior is changing, and be fast. You need to be agile and speedy in this situation. Consumer change opinion much more than in the past, and based on the challenges that they face, this is speeding up even more. The whole supply chain that we knew from the past is being challenged now, based on the various things that I said before, and now COVID is even more challenged because it is proven from history that all this crisis, it will take some time to recover, to go to a new normal, and nobody knows how exactly this new normal will look like. But it's clear that from history, and I don't know if David has some more things about this, but it's clear that every recovery of the business takes from 1 to 8 years. Is that this famous U's or V's, etc. And it depends on the industry as well, because usually we're talking about the economy, which is the average of all businesses, but every industry takes differently to recover. So the learnings are that you have to be very close to customer, you need to be agile and focused, and react very fast on the changes. And the third thing that I would like to say is mainly focus on people, focus on your employees first. And I was really amazed, and from this opportunity, I would like to say one more thank you to them, for our employees, that they passed all this thing with maturity, with discipline, with everything to continue to do business, and at the same time, all of us to feel safe. So I would say that the new threats are coming. It's clearly towards these directions. It's people related, but machine driven, if I can summarize.
I will challenge David on something else in just a bit, but first let's follow up on George's comments. You come from academia, obviously. So what are your feelings about and your thoughts about the recovery? And I'll challenge you after that.
Yeah, certainly the industry will change. We're all finding out a lot about how we can do things remotely. This is a very personal interaction intensive business. I mean, that's basically all it is ultimately, is interactions between people. And I think we're going to have to figure out how to reconcile, for a school like AUBG in particular, which is very much oriented towards hands-on interaction between faculty and students, close relationships between faculty and students. We're going to have to figure out how to navigate what we can do with technology more broadly, and to serve our students well, and to serve their potential employers, for example, well, and those sorts of things, while maintaining the kind of style of institution that we are, that makes us distinctive in our market. I think in the US, which is only marginally relevant here, but I think in the US, quite a lot of small private colleges will fail financially because they're losing a tremendous amount of revenue from residence halls and meals and those sorts of things. And that's going to be a disaster, I think, there. Here, so far, we've been all right, but I do think our business model and our just general way of operating is going to have to adjust pretty considerably to take the things that we've learned about virtual meetings and not necessarily always traveling to do things and those sorts of things, and incorporate them in a way that really works with the kind of institution we are.
You are heading towards the direction that I was willing to ask you, but obvious and a lot of people that are interested in the way AUBG has developed over the last years know that you had certain challenges in terms of leadership. You are having some challenges in terms of enrollment, because let's not forget that, let's say 20 years ago, there were people coming from all over the Balkans to Bulgaria, to Volgograd to study there, but now with the globalization and the opportunities that a student from, say, Kosovo has, now there are much more options. So
yes.
AUBG is just becoming one of these options.
Yes.
So how do you see the midterm development of AUBG? Probably also, let's leave the pandemic situation aside. Probably it doesn't make sense to leave it aside, but how were you planning to go ahead, and how did COVID change your plans?
Yeah, those are great questions. I do think that we're going to get some benefit from Brexit because the biggest challenge to us, at least from the other nations around here that are in the EU, was the accessibility of other English language options at an affordable cost, which will go away with Brexit. So I don't think there's a lot good about Brexit, but I think that we're going to get a bit of an advantage out of that. But I do think also one of the things that's happened here in the last few years, and this is very promising, is as our Balkan enrollment has declined some, and as Bulgaria has its well-known challenges with demographics, we've started to expand our recruitment. And so now we have pretty significant numbers of students from the Republic of Georgia, from a small growing number from Azerbaijan, the Central Asian republics, Mongolia, which is great for the institution in terms of the diversity of experiences students bring. And so what we're trying to navigate, and you mentioned globalization, I think what we're trying to do here is take the challenges of globalization and turn them into opportunities. Because one of the things that our students really have always reported liking, and have done that again in a survey about a year ago, was the diversity of the campus life and the fact that they get to meet and work with and network with and make contacts with people from a lot of different countries. We have students from about 40 right now. And so we're trying to lessen our reliance on the local area, provide additional funding for students, because most of our students come from economically challenged countries. We don't have a lot of students from rich countries, and diversify our flow of incoming students so that if we have challenges in one market area, we have backups elsewhere. So that, from an enrollment standpoint, that's what we're really working on.
Let's not forget one advantage is having Bанско around the corner.
That's true. That's true.
So Kристиан, we are talking about digitalization, transformation, and how these processes have been accelerated in the past year. And I'm just wondering, how could a hotel experience could be digitalized? How can you transform it?
Yeah, you cannot. That's the simple answer. You cannot. No, I mean, what we have done internally, company-wide, we roll out. We had already before a very good online digital training program called Lobster, and where we have hundreds of courses for starters to management level. We work together with some famous universities, such as the Cornell University in the United States, famous for the hotel business. So we have switched all the training and development online, and it was really good that we started that already 3 years ago. So we even the trainings that we usually do in person, we moved to online classes. We do digital conferences. We had a worldwide human resources and training manager conference online for 3 days. It also worked out. Yeah, of course, it is not like meeting in person and all these little talks on the side and in the evening. That is, which also helps to connect with each other. So, of course, we are a people business. We miss this. Yeah, and for the coming back to your question in regards to the hotel business, we simply cannot. I mean, I can do a lot more on social media to promote the hotel, but at the end of the day, the guests want to come here. I mean, you cannot ski from home, obviously. You know? So we can just adapt and make it as safe as possible and to provide the right experience under these conditions that we have, but we cannot turn our business into a digital hotel market. And yeah, so it is all about to adapt to the current situation.
Well, what George was also talking about is this customer experience being isn't by digitalization. So one option obviously would be to cut some of the personnel in order to make this experience quicker for customers. But obviously, it's also part of the game to be introduced by someone, to enter the hotel and see someone. Have you been thinking about in this direction?
Yes. Yes, that you can do a couple of things. For example, you have some hotels already since 10 years, they have a check-in machine. Yeah, so you go into the hotel, there's no reception, there's a machine, you enter your passport or credit card, you get the room key, you go to your room, and you have no human interaction. But that doesn't work in a 5-star luxury hotel. Our guests, they want to be welcomed at the reception. It starts actually in front of the door, the welcome, someone takes care of your luggage. You check in a resort hotel, guests have a lot of questions. Where can I buy the ski pass? What can I do? Where's the spa? How can I make a restaurant booking? And so on. So we have limited opportunities to do anything with machines. Of course, there are some hotels also, they started to serve room service via a little robot. Yeah, but as I said, that works in some places with some customers that are maybe very technically interested and so on, but I cannot see serving our room service and opening a bottle of wine for the guest done by a robot. So we have our limitations. Yeah, but what we have done is, for example, we try to reduce a little bit the direct contact. Like, for example, we offer the guests that if they don't want to be disturbed in their room during the stay, that if they say, I don't want housekeeping, I don't want anyone to enter my room except myself, they can ask for that, and then we keep their privacy. Anyway, when we prepare a room for a new arrival, we also disinfect all surfaces with this UVC light. So we also use technology to support us, of course, but as I said, in the travel business, it lives by experience, by exchange, and by having people around you.
George, what about your experience with customers? How did their needs change in the last year?
To be honest, Veselin, it's still happening. It's still happening, and I think we don't exactly understand what in full aspect what is currently happening. So I assume there are more things to say, to see and say. Look, from the Bulgarian point of view, in terms of customers, I would say that in the first lockdown it was a kind of full discipline in the measures, and somehow consumers shocked on how to function, how to operate their daily shopping or their lives, it followed after an impatience to start, to increase the normalcy levels. So I would say in the summer it was a boom again. So like everybody went out and started to function and operate. And then we had an intermediate step, which it was the second lockdown lately. This is what we are facing now, somehow much more lighter than the previous one, where the consumers found out the way how to function, how to shop, how to entertain themselves. Because as Christian said, even the entertainment facilities, etc., now they are much better on facilitating this safety environment. So this helped a lot. I mean, we all learned from the first one and adapted. So overall, this is the situation from the consumer. Now, if we see the consumer trends that are taking place, I would say we saw a shift on digital overall. For example, our channels for the heat-no-burn smoke-free products that we sell, electronic devices, our digital channels increased big time during this period because many people do not want to come to a store to buy the device, or they don't want to get in contact with a person and they would like to do it from remotely. So I would say for Bulgaria business, overall digital trends was high. I believe Bulgaria is very fastly developed in the digital penetration. We are still the lowest in EU, if I'm not mistaken, based on research, but growing very fast. And I think this COVID year or COVID period is going to be a booster. So this was clearly the one. The second, I would say, consumers are looking for empathetic pricing, if I could say it like this. COVID impacted the economy, so there is some uncertainty to people's minds. So people tend to start, being more skeptical about pricing, go for value for money, etc. So that's why, for example, our logic for this year is to provide some empathetic pricing for our products. And I assume many businesses will do the same until we understand how the economy will evolve, unemployment goes back to the previous levels, etc., etc. So I would say these are the key things that we observed during the last period. Now, in terms of deeper things, I think we need to wait a bit, more things to come.
But in that case, when you're talking about empathetic pricing, did you have to readjust your financial expectations and sales expectations for the year?
Look, we are from the lucky ones. I mean, overall, the tobacco business is a stable business, and we are resilient to crisis traditionally. This doesn't mean that in 2020 we achieved our objectives, our budget. It was a tough period for everybody, and we cannot be an exception. But in order to be, how can I say, logical, and we didn't have the decreases that other businesses had, because many businesses literally shut down their operations. So I just want to make this disclaimer in order to, but it doesn't mean that we have the best year of our lives in the company. So yes, we need to adjust it. We need to adjust. We need to adjust pricing. So, and at the same time, we need to also, take care of the financials of our partners as well, in terms of transactions, etc. Because it's a period that we all have to be empathetic with the people and business around, and everybody needs some kind of predictability, and this is expected from everybody, from businesses, from governments, in order to support the business for this crisis, for this period. So yeah.
Christian, do you have some opportunities to think midterm when it comes to people coming to Bанско and coming to Bulgaria in general? What's your prediction for let's say the whole year?
That's very hard to predict with this ever-changing, very dynamic environment that we see. I'm forecasting for the next 3 weeks, and that is the maximum I can do, because there are so many changes these days. Like, for example, I had for February, I had also a lot of bookings from the Israeli market, and since all flights were cancelled, they all canceled their reservation. But suddenly I got more bookings coming from the Bulgarian market, and that could partly cover this. So it's challenging. I'm happy and satisfied with the ski season at the moment. That works well. I hope that we will continue this trend until, let's say, end of March. Then usually the ski season is coming to an end. And in April and May, we are closing anyway every year for the season for 6 weeks. So that means we look at beginning of June, and that really depends on the overall situation. I hope that through this vaccination progress, less people get infected in Bulgaria, and that travel will come back, especially meetings and events, weddings. That's what we are missing right now. I'm not worried about the individual traveler. They are still coming to Bанско. But in this so-called off-season, which is not the ski season and not maybe August, September, we really rely a lot on meetings, events, on incentives, and so on. And it's very hard to forecast now if that will happen this autumn, for example, September, October, November. That really depends on the overall situation. But we managed last year somehow to find other target markets, and then probably we will be able to do the same. Let's see.
We're heading towards the end, and maybe we could start this final part with some hope. And Christian, you've mentioned the vaccination. David, you're part of the education system, and apparently they already started vaccinating people in education. Have you hit? Have the jab hit you already?
No, they haven't. But what I understand is that they're doing elementary school and secondary school teachers first, which is I think right. And we're next in line, so we're waiting to find out what will happen. And I'm kind of excited about it because I actually haven't been home for a little bit over a year, and I don't really want to get on a plane to fly back to the United States until I've been vaccinated. So I'm kind of tapping my fingers waiting for it right now.
And how about your plans for the next school year?
Well, we've talked a lot about digitalization, and if our numbers were according to traditional metrics, we would be way ahead of previous years in terms of inquiries and applications and those kinds of things. It's however, it's very hard to tell how solid those are because they've all been gathered in a completely different way from the way we normally do it. So we've been very lucky so far. We've been quite stable this year. We're heading towards a balanced budget. I think we'll be fine. But next year is unpredictable. Also, a lot of our students rely on summer work and travel in the United States. And following up on Kристиан, most of them work in the hospitality industry in New England in the United States. And honestly, who knows what that's going to be this year. And so we're a little bit concerned because a lot of students rely on that to fund their education. And we're trying to work out strategies to help them fund it other ways if they can't go to the US and work there this summer. So we don't know, basically.
I think we could actually sum up this whole conversation with a big question mark, because we really don't know to a big extent what's going to happen throughout this year. But if I may dare to ask you, George, finally, what do you expect to happen over this year, and how is the vaccination process gonna affect businesses?
It's true, Vasily. The vaccination is key, as it looks like, to go back to a new normal soon enough. Actually, I don't think anybody in the panel here today can give predictions what will happen, since it's huge ambiguity regarding the topic. But look, yeah, overall, I'm optimistic. And I will explain why. Because first of all, as a bit philosophical comment, as humanity, we have passed pandemics in the past and we survived. Okay, it's not the first time that this is happening, so we will get through this at some point of time. This is number one. The other thing is, no pandemics can stop the appetite for people to live and to advance and to progress. So life will go on, apparently. For example, I'm a bit stressed going, for example, to a hotel, but you see that many people go, as Kристиан said, and enjoy their life. So imagine what will happen after this thing is over. And I mean, for me, I'm very optimistic. After the storm, it's always a very nice day, and this will happen again. Now, from our company's point of view, we will continue. We have, as I said, we had the challenges in the past these challenges made us to transform, apparently. So we are transforming now as of 4 or 5 years back in every aspect. This COVID now, it's another thing that pushes us ahead to transform, and being better, serve the consumers better, and providing options to smokers with otherwise continue to smoke for better alternatives. And this we will continue to do. From Bulgaria business point of view, we will focus, as I said, to people. I think as COVID remains, we should be very close to people, consumers in our case, our people, partners, and society overall, because you cannot be a king in a burnt land. You have to support prosperity. And generally, I'm optimistic. Finally, the sunshine will come and everything will be better again. I think Bulgaria is not, will recover soon because the core structure of the economy didn't change despite the challenge of the COVID. So whatever we were expecting at some point of time, it will come back again. Overall, I'm optimistic. I believe that soon enough, this is going to be over, one way or another.
George, thank you very much for ending this panel and this interesting discussion on a such positive note. I think we all need a lot of positivity in this time and looking ahead with, as you said, looking ahead towards progress. So thank you guys for joining us and being with Forbes' audience over the last almost an hour. We've been discussing this English-speaking edition of Forbes Live about how COVID-19 changed and is challenging industries with Kристиан Руге, who is the general manager of Kempinski Hotel Grand Arena Bанско, with Джордж Маргонис, who is the general manager of Филип Морис International, and with Dr. Дейвид Евънс, who is the newly appointed interim president of AUBG. And speaking about progress, our new print edition is out on the market, and it's really about progress because the cover story is about a young Bulgarian who is actually sending satellites into space. So I could only advise you to take a look, buy and read our new edition. And thank you, gentlemen, for being with us at Forbes Live, and looking forward to seeing you again and hearing from you again.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Goodbye.
Bye-bye.